Chapter 2. Happiness is a problem.
About 2,500 years ago, in the Himalayan foothills of present-day Nepal, there lived in a great palace a king who was going to have a son. For this son, the king had a particularly grand idea. He would make the child's life perfect. The child would never know a moment of suffering. Every need and every desire would be accounted for at all times. The king built high walls around the palace that prevented the prince from knowing the outside world. He spoiled the child. He lavished him with food and gifts. He surrounded him with servants who catered to his every whim. And just as planned, the child grew up ignorant of the routine cruelties of human existence. All of the prince's childhood went on like this. But despite the endless luxury and opulence, the prince became kind of a pissed-off young man. Soon, every experience felt empty and valueless. The problem was that no matter what his father gave him, it never seemed enough. It never meant anything. So late one night, the prince snuck out of the palace to see what was beyond its walls. He had a servant drive him through the local village. What he saw horrified him. For the first time in his life, the prince saw human suffering. He saw sick people, old people, and homeless people. He saw people in pain, and even people dying. The prince returned to the palace and found himself in a sort of existential crisis. Not knowing how to process what he had seen, he got all emotional about everything and complained a lot. As is so typical of young men, the prince ended up blaming his father for the very things his father had tried to do for him. It was the riches, the prince thought, that had made him so miserable. It had made life seem so meaningless. He decided to run away, but the prince was more like his father than he knew. He had grand ideas too. He would not just run away. He would give up his royalty, his family, and all of his possessions. He would live in the streets, sleeping in dirt like an animal. There he would starve himself, torture himself, and beg for scraps of food from strangers for the rest of his life. The next night, the prince snuck out of the palace again, this time never to return. For years, he lived as a bum. He was a discarded and forgotten remnant of society. He was the dog shit cake to the bottom of the social totem pole, and as planned, the prince suffered greatly. He suffered through disease, hunger, pain, loneliness, and decay. He confronted the brink of death itself. He was often limited to eating a single nut each day. A few years went by, then a few more, and then nothing happened. The prince began to notice that this life of suffering was not all that it was cracked up to be. It was not bringing him the insight he had desired. It was not revealing any deeper mystery of the world or its ultimate purpose. In fact, the prince came to know what the rest of us have always kind of known. Suffering totally sucks, and it is not necessarily that meaningful either. Just as with being rich, there is no value in suffering when it is done without purpose. Soon the prince came to the conclusion that his grand idea, like his father's, was in fact a terrible idea. He realized he should probably go do something else instead. Totally confused, the prince cleaned himself up. He went and found a big tree near a river. He decided that he would sit under that tree and not get up until he came up with another grand idea. As the legend goes, the confused prince sat under that tree for 49 days. We won't delve into the biological viability of sitting in the same spot for 49 days. But let us just say that in that time, the prince came to a number of profound realizations. One of those realizations was this: life itself is a form of suffering. The rich suffer because of their riches. The poor suffer because of their poverty. People without a family suffer because they have no family. People with a family suffer because of their family. People who pursue worldly pleasures suffer because of their worldly pleasures. People who abstain from worldly pleasures suffer because of their abstention. This is not to say that all suffering is equal. Some suffering is certainly more painful than other suffering, but we all must suffer nonetheless. Years later, the prince would build his own philosophy and share it with the world. This would be its first and central tenet. Pain and loss are inevitable. We should let go of trying to resist them. The prince would later become known as the Buddha. In case you haven't heard of him, he was kind of a big deal. There is a premise that underlies a lot of our assumptions and beliefs. The premise is that happiness is algorithmic. We think it can be worked for, earned, and achieved. This premise, though, is the problem. Happiness is not a solvable equation. Dissatisfaction and unease are inherent parts of human nature. As we will see, they are necessary components to creating consistent happiness. The Buddha argued this from a theological perspective. I will make the same argument from a biological perspective, and with pandas. If I could invent a superhero, I would invent one called Disappointment Panda. He would wear a cheesy eye mask and a shirt with a giant capital T on it. His superpower would be to tell people harsh truths about themselves. These were truths they needed to hear but didn't want to accept. He would ring doorbells and say things like, "Sure, making a lot of money makes you feel good, but it won't make your kids love you." Or, "If you have to ask yourself if you trust your wife, then you probably don't." Or, "What you consider friendship is really just your constant attempts to impress people." Then he would tell the homeowner to have a nice day and saunter on down to the next house. It would be awesome and necessary. After all, the greatest truths in life are usually the most unpleasant to hear. Disappointment Panda would be the hero that none of us would want, but all of us would need. He would be the proverbial vegetables to our mental diet of junk food. He would make us stronger by tearing us down. Listening to him would be like watching a movie where the hero dies in the end. You love it even more despite making you feel horrible, because it feels real. Allow me to put on my Disappointment Panda mask and drop another unpleasant truth on you. We suffer for the simple reason that suffering is biologically useful. It is nature's preferred agent for inspiring change. We have evolved to always live with a certain degree of dissatisfaction and insecurity. It is the mildly dissatisfied creature that is going to do the most work to innovate and survive. We are wired to become dissatisfied with whatever we have. We are satisfied only by what we do not have. This constant dissatisfaction has kept our species fighting and striving. So no, our own pain and misery aren't a bug of human evolution. They are a feature. Pain, in all of its forms, is our body's most effective means of spurring action. Physical pain is a product of our nervous system. It is a feedback mechanism to give us a sense of our own physical proportions. When we exceed those limits, our nervous system duly punishes us. It makes sure that we pay attention and never do it again. And this pain, as much as we hate it, is useful. Pain is what teaches us what to pay attention to when we are young or careless. It helps show us what is good for us versus what is bad for us. It helps us understand and adhere to our own limitations. Therefore, it is not always beneficial to avoid pain and seek pleasure. Pain can, at times, be life or death important to our well-being. But pain is not merely physical. We humans are capable of experiencing acute psychological pain as well. Like physical pain, our psychological pain is an indication of something out of equilibrium. It shows some limitation that has been exceeded. In some cases, experiencing emotional or psychological pain can be healthy or necessary, just like stubbing our toe teaches us to walk into fewer tables. The emotional pain of rejection or failure teaches us how to avoid making the same mistakes in the future. This is what is so dangerous about a society that coddles itself. We lose the benefits of experiencing healthy doses of pain. This loss disconnects us from the reality of the world around us. You may salivate at the thought of a problem-free life, but back here on Earth, the problems never cease. Seriously, problems don't end. Disappointment Panda just dropped by. We had margaritas, and he told me all about it. Problems never fucking go away. They just improve. Warren Buffett has got money problems. The hobo down at the convenience store has got money problems. Buffett just has better money problems than the hobo. All of life is like this. Life is essentially an endless series of problems, Mark, the panda told me. He sipped his drink and adjusted the little pink umbrella. The solution to one problem is merely the creation of the next one. A moment passed, and then I wondered where the fuck the talking panda came from. Don't hope for a life without problems, the panda said. There's no such thing. Instead, hope for a life full of good problems. And with that, he set his glass down, adjusted his sombrero, and sauntered off into the sunset. Problems are a constant in life. When you solve your health problem by buying a gym membership, you create new problems. For example, you have to get up early to get to the gym on time. You have to sweat for 30 minutes on an elliptical. Then you have to get showered and changed so you do not stink up the office. When you solve the problem of not spending enough time with your partner by designating Wednesday night as date night, you generate new problems. You have to figure out what to do every Wednesday that you both will not hate. You have to make sure you have enough money for nice dinners. You have to work on rediscovering the chemistry you feel you have lost. Problems never stop. They merely get exchanged or upgraded. Happiness comes from solving problems. The key word here is solving. If you avoid your problems or feel like you do not have any, you are going to make yourself miserable. If you feel like you have problems you cannot solve, you will likewise make yourself miserable. The secret sauce is in the solving of the problems. It is not about not having problems in the first place. To be happy, we need something to solve. Happiness is therefore a form of action. It is an activity, not something that is passively bestowed upon you. It is not something that you magically discover in a top 10 article or from a guru. It does not magically appear when you finally make enough money for that extra room in your house. You do not find it waiting for you in a place, an idea, or even a book. Happiness is a constant work in progress. Solving problems is a constant work in progress. The solutions to today's problems will lay the foundation for tomorrow's problems. True happiness occurs only when you find the problems you enjoy having and enjoy solving. Sometimes those problems are simple. You might enjoy eating good food, traveling to a new place, or winning a video game. Other times, those problems are abstract and complicated. You might be fixing your relationship with your mother or finding a career you feel good about. Whatever your problems are, the concept is the same. Solve problems and be happy. Unfortunately, for many people, life does not feel that simple. That is because they mess things up in one of two ways. The first way is denial. Some people deny that their problems exist in the first place. Because they deny reality, they must constantly delude or distract themselves. This might make them feel good in the short term, but it leads to a life of insecurity and emotional repression. The second way is a victim mentality. Some choose to believe there is nothing they can do to solve their problems. Victims seek to blame others or outside circumstances for their problems. This leads to a life of anger, helplessness, and despair. People deny and blame others because it is easy and feels good. Solving problems is hard and often feels bad. Blame and denial give us a quick high. They are a way to temporarily escape our problems. Highs come in many forms. It could be alcohol, moral righteousness, or the thrill of a risky adventure. These highs are shallow and unproductive. Much of the self-help world is based on peddling highs rather than solving problems. Many gurus teach new forms of denial. They pump you up with exercises that feel good while ignoring the underlying issue. Remember, nobody who is actually happy has to stand in front of a mirror and tell himself that he is happy. Highs also generate addiction. The more you rely on them to feel better, the more you will seek them out. We all have our chosen methods to numb the pain of our problems. But the longer we numb, the more painful it will be when we finally confront our issues. Emotions evolve for one purpose. They help us live and reproduce better. That is it. They are feedback mechanisms. They tell us that something is either likely right or likely wrong for us. The pain of touching a hot stove teaches you not to touch it again. Similarly, the sadness of being alone teaches you not to do the things that made you feel alone. Emotions are biological signals designed to nudge you in the direction of change. If you feel crappy, it is because your brain is telling you there is an unaddressed problem. Negative emotions are a call to action. Positive emotions are rewards for taking proper action. When you feel them, life seems simple, and there is nothing else to do but enjoy it. Then, the positive emotions go away. More problems inevitably emerge. Emotions are signposts, not commandments. Therefore, we should not always trust our own emotions. In fact, we should make a habit of questioning them. To deny your negative emotions is to deny the feedback mechanisms that help you solve problems. If you cannot solve problems, you cannot be happy. But then there are those who over-identify with their emotions. Everything is justified simply because they felt it. Decision-making based on emotional intuition usually sucks. You know who bases their entire lives on their emotions? 3-year-old kids and dogs. You know what else 3-year-olds and dogs do? They shit on the carpet. An obsession with emotion fails us because emotions never last. Whatever makes us happy today will not make us happy tomorrow. Our biology always needs something more. A fixation on happiness leads to a pursuit of something else. A new house, a new relationship, or a pay raise. Despite all our effort, we end up feeling just as inadequate as we did at the start. Psychologists call this the hedonic treadmill. We work hard to change our life situation, but we never actually feel very different. This is why our problems are recursive. The person you marry is the person you fight with. The house you buy is the house you repair. Everything comes with a sacrifice. Whatever makes us feel good will also inevitably make us feel bad. What creates our positive experiences will define our negative experiences. We like the idea that we can reach some form of ultimate happiness. We like the idea that we can stop all suffering permanently. We want to feel satisfied with our lives forever, but we cannot. If I ask you what you want out of life, and you say something like, I want to be happy and have a great family and a job I like, your response is so common that it doesn't really mean anything. Everybody enjoys what feels good. Everyone wants to live a carefree, happy, and easy life. We all want to fall in love and have amazing sex and relationships. We want to look perfect, make money, and be admired by everyone we meet. We want to be a total success, to the point that people part like the Red Sea when we walk into the room. Everybody wants that. It is easy to want that. A more interesting question, a question that most people never consider, is this. What pain do you want in your life? What are you willing to struggle for? Because that seems to be a greater determinant of how our lives turn out. For example, most people want to get the corner office and make a boatload of money. But not many people want to suffer through 60-hour work weeks, long commutes, obnoxious paperwork, and arbitrary corporate hierarchies to escape the confines of an infinite cubicle hell. Most people want to have great sex and an awesome relationship. But not everyone is willing to go through the tough conversations, the awkward silences, and the hurt feelings. They are not ready for the emotional psychodrama to get there. And so they settle. They settle and wonder, what if? For years and years until the question morphs from what if into what else. And when the lawyers go home and the alimony check is in the mail, they say, what for? If not for their lowered standards and expectations 20 years prior, then what for? Because happiness requires struggle. It grows from problems. Joy does not just sprout out of the ground like daisies and rainbows. Real, serious, lifelong fulfillment and meaning have to be earned through the choosing and managing of our struggles. Whether you suffer from anxiety or loneliness or obsessive-compulsive disorder or a dickhead boss who ruins half of your waking hours every day, the solution lies in the acceptance and active engagement of that negative experience. It is not the avoidance of it, and it is not the salvation from it. People want an amazing physique, but you do not end up with one unless you legitimately appreciate the pain and physical stress that come with living inside a gym for hour upon hour. You have to love calculating and calibrating the food you eat, planning your life out in tiny plate-sized portions. People want to start their own business, but you do not end up a successful entrepreneur unless you find a way to appreciate the risk, the uncertainty, the repeated failures, and the insane hours devoted to something that may earn absolutely nothing. People want a partner or a spouse, but you do not end up attracting someone amazing without appreciating the emotional turbulence that comes with weathering rejections, building the sexual tension that never gets released, and staring blankly at a phone that never rings. It is part of the game of love. You cannot win if you do not play. What determines your success is not, what do you want to enjoy? The relevant question is, what pain do you want to sustain? The path to happiness is a path full of shit heaps and shame. You have to choose something. You cannot have a pain-free life. It cannot all be roses and unicorns all the time. Pleasure is the easy question, and pretty much all of us have a similar answer. The more interesting question is the pain. What is the pain that you want to sustain? That is the hard question that matters. It is the question that will actually get you somewhere. It is the question that can change a perspective, a life. It is what makes me, me, and you, you. It is what defines us and separates us and ultimately brings us together. For most of my adolescence and young adulthood, I fantasized about being a musician, a rock star in particular. Any badass guitar song I heard, I would always close my eyes and envision myself up on stage, playing it to the screams of the crowd. People would be absolutely losing their minds to my sweet finger-noodling glory. This fantasy could keep me occupied for hours on end. For me, it was never a question of if I would ever be up playing in front of screaming crowds, but when. I had it all planned out. I was simply biding my time before I could invest the proper amount of energy and effort into getting out there and making my mark. First, I needed to finish school. Then I needed to make some extra money to buy gear. Then I needed to find enough free time to practice. Then I had to network and plan my first project. And then nothing. Despite my fantasizing about this for over half my lifetime, the reality never came to fruition. And it took me a long time and a lot of struggle to finally figure out why I did not actually want it. I was in love with the result. I loved the image of me on stage, people cheering, me rocking out, and pouring my heart into what I was playing. But I was not in love with the process. And because of that, I failed at it, repeatedly. Hell, I did not even try hard enough to fail at it. I hardly tried at all. I hated the daily drudgery of practicing, the logistics of finding a group and rehearsing, the pain of finding gigs and actually getting people to show up and give a shit, the broken strings, the blown tube amp, hauling 40 pounds of gear to and from rehearsals with no car. It is a mountain of a dream and a mile-high climb to the top. And what it took me a long time to discover is that I did not like to climb much. I just like to imagine the summit. The common cultural narratives would tell me that I somehow failed myself. They would say I am a quitter or a loser. They would say I just did not have it, or that I gave up on my dream, and that maybe I let myself succumb to the pressures of society. But the truth is far less interesting than any of these explanations. The truth is, I thought I wanted something, but it turns out I did not. End of story. I wanted the reward and not the struggle. I wanted the result and not the process. I was in love with not the fight, but only the victory. And life does not work that way. Who you are is defined by what you are willing to struggle for. People who enjoy the struggles of a gym are the ones who run triathlons and have chiseled abs and can bench press a small house. People who enjoy long work weeks and the politics of the corporate ladder are the ones who fly to the top of it. People who enjoy the stresses and uncertainties of the starving artist lifestyle are ultimately the ones who live it and make it. This is not about willpower or grit. This is not another admonishment of no pain, no gain. This is the most simple and basic component of life. Our struggles determine our successes. Our problems birth our happiness, along with slightly better, slightly upgraded problems. See, it's a never-ending upward spiral. And if you think at any point you're allowed to stop climbing, I'm afraid you're missing the point, because the joy is in the climb itself.